you are. Hello and welcome to the Patients Engage podcast series, Lived and Leading. Today, we will talk about advocating for employment of persons with mental illness. This is part of the series where we feature persons with lived experience of a condition or a disability and how they are channeling their learnings into improving healthcare and care in general. They could be providing peer support or could be advocating for changes in the health system. Patients Engage is a platform that empowers people with chronic conditions and disabilities to engage better with their health and make informed decisions. And we also advocate for more meaningful involvement of people living with long-term conditions in health system decision-making and in society in general. I'm Aparna Mittal from Patients Engage, and today I'm speaking with Vijay Nallawala, co-founder, Mental Health Support Foundation, and Tanya, Dutt, co-founder of Atmanirbhar Trust, both of whom are passionate advocates of employment for persons living with severe mental illness. A little bit more about them. Vijay is a commerce graduate as well as an entrepreneur for over 3 decades. His decades of lived experience with bipolar disorder led him to extend outreach to the entire community, and he started Bipolar India in May 2013, a unique peer-to-peer led support network using both online and offline hybrid model. Vijay also wrote a book documenting his journey of recovery. The book's called A Bipolar's Journey from Torment to Fulfillment. He is co-founder and managing trustee of Mental Health Support Foundation, under which they have 2 priority initiatives, Bipolar India and Let's Walk Together. Let's Walk Together is dedicated to providing livelihood for persons with mental health conditions, which is really the focus of our conversation today. Tanya Dutt is the executive director of Chromatics and Insulins Private Limited and oversees manufacture and export of pigment dispersions for thermosets and manages 3 production units in Chennai. She's the co-founder and managing trustee of Atmanirbhar Trust, an organization that creates meaningful employment opportunities for individuals living with mental health challenges. Her work in the mental health space extends further through her role as Secretary of AASHA, which is a 35-year-old NGO run by families and caregivers of persons with mental health issues. Under her guidance, AASHA continues to operate a residential rehab center in Chennai, providing long-term care and support to individuals with mental health issues. During the course of today's conversation, we will hear terms such as PMI, which is persons with mental illness. We will hear the term service user, which is also used for persons with mental health issues. We'll also hear persons with disability or RPWD, which is Rights of Persons with Disability, which is an act of 2016. So, that will help us understand some of the conversation as well. And in our conversation with Vijay and Tanya, we will talk to them about their journey into advocacy, the challenges they continue to see in their work, despite the remarkable policy changes that we've seen in India, as well as solutions that make employment possible. Because one of the things we constantly hear is that it's difficult or it's not doable. And I think we're here to tell you how it is doable. Right. So welcome to the show, Vijay and Tanya. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for the warm
introduction. So if you can both, maybe Vijay, if you can start, introduce yourself in a couple of sentences beyond your work as an advocate, right? Who are you as an individual?
I would call myself an explorer, a person who believes in possibilities. Yeah? At heart, I am an artist, a writer to the core. That explains probably my book as well. I'm a family person. I live life to the fullest. I don't limit myself to the label of mental illness that I live with. I think life is such a magnificent canvas. That's a small part of the canvas. Yeah? So I love travel, the dining out, the small pleasures of life, and I'm passionate about my fitness. So that's about it.
Thank you. Thank you, Vijay. Tanya?
Yeah, first of all, hello everyone. Happy to be here. Thank you, Patients Engage and Aparna, for having me here. I think, as you mentioned, I'm also like a second generation entrepreneur at Chromatics, and I'm a secondary caregiver to my uncle who has schizophrenia. So my life is surrounded by mental health. In many ways, Chromatics has been the pilot for the whole employment model because that's where my uncle started working, and there are many learnings from that which we have taken away and applied to both Asha and Atmanirbhar. Other than that, I'm a single parent and I'm a dog parent, which keeps my mental health in check.
Yeah, thank you. So Vijay, if you can, I know we said that you have decades of lived experience with bipolar. Can you kind of quickly, in a very short, like 3 minutes, talk us through your journey from when were you diagnosed? How did you manage the treatment and the recovery?
So mine is quite a sort of, difficult to believe kind of a journey where the onset of symptoms began at a very early age, even before 14, when I was in my, key 10th boards, that level of academics. And then suddenly the world sort of starts falling apart, not understanding what was happening to me. There was no concept of mental health at all at that time. It was just about me for going crazy. That's what my little mind was telling me. Also, men being suppressed, the inability to open up, share one's vulnerabilities. That sort of prevented me from getting the care and support that I needed at that time. And well, things meandered. There were all these upheavals during the years, and diagnosis finally happened a full 26 years later, when
Hmm.
my symptoms were just impossible to for people not to sit up and notice. Yeah, in my from within my family also.
Right.
And I had to be hospitalized in an acute phase of mania, which
Hmm.
is the elevated mood phase of bipolar disorder, we call it.
Right.
Subsequently, I was also diagnosed with comorbid ADHD and OCD. So, how did I manage to recover from it? We all know that recovery needs so many elements to fall into place. It's not a single person's walk. That becomes even more challenging. So I had the support of a fantastic psychiatrist, a doting family. I mean, that's such a key element in the recovery process. And of course, my own determination, resilience, the will to sort of overcome the odds. As I shared earlier, I'm very particular about my fitness and sort of my self-care routine. These things
Hmm.
keep me going. And after living through this journey for almost half a century now, I'm with the illness, of course. Um, I'm glad to share with the audience here today that I'm in complete remission for the last 7 to 8 years. And
Excellent.
I consider myself truly fortunate to be
Hmm.
enjoying these moments of my life.
Right. Right. Thank you, Vijay. Um, Tanya, I know you mentioned that your uncle had schizophrenia, and as and in terms of um, how long ago are we talking about, and what was the motivation at that time to get him into employment, and how did you then get involved?
So I think my uncle, my mother is his primary caregiver.
Mm.
And again, like Vijay said, it took us a very long time for the diagnosis to happen. So from the time the symptoms started showing in his after he finished college, it took 10 years for the diagnosis to happen, for the treatment to start. And then,
Right.
it just became very difficult for my mother to manage him at home as well. So he was in a community home for some time. And, there was a lot of problems with funds and how to take care of him and all of that. So at that time, my mother, she started chromatics
Hmm.
more as a way of, making sure it was more to be financially independent for to take care of her brother as well as kids,
Hmm.
us. So we have actually, I have seen her journey right from the time, like, when I was very young, when he started showing the symptoms, to as I got older, when she started chromatics, and then she founded ASHA. So
Hmm.
then it became not only
And
about
your mother's name is Ratna Chibbar, right?
Ratna Chibbar, yes, yes. And so when she founded ASHA, so then it became not only about him, but it became about others. So ASHA
Hmm.
was basically started like a support organization, so where by caregivers. So
Hmm.
caregivers would meet each other, talk to each other, they would discuss, it was very new, and we're talking about 35 years ago. So
Right.
even schizophrenia was so rare for anybody to hear about it. And yet, all these families had individuals who actually had similar symptoms and they were going through the same things. So for my mother, it was actually it was like a huge weight had lifted all over her shoulders, because she felt for the first time she's seeing somebody else who's also having this issue. So she would very often go into SCUF where my uncle was diagnosed, and she would meet the other caregivers, talk to them. They would all sit around and talk, and that's how ASHA was founded.
Right.
So I was in school, and in my free time, I would accompany her, and I would meet these people. So these were caregivers. Sometimes I would meet the service users, and
Hmm.
friendships, formed, and relationships formed, and I have grown up like that. So it was very kind of, I think, natural for me to just follow that trajectory and just get into. And yes, I was very inspired by her. I was very inspired by other people also.
Right.
So
Right.
I wanted to advocate for the friends I made and I grew up with. Yeah.
So, and I know this is, sometimes can be awkward, but we still as a society wonder, right? If, like, for instance, as a kid, you were exposed to people with mental illness, I'm
Yes.
sure there would have been family and friends who must have thought this is not appropriate for you to be exposed to.
Yeah.
Um, do you remember any of that? And how did your mother handle it? How did you handle it? Sometimes even in school, other kids might say something.
So it was so the thing was, there was a lot of shame at home.
Hmm.
So um, with family, there was a lot of shame at home with family, and we would not, he was not allowed to come out of the room.
Hmm.
We had visitors. So but I noticed that when it was outside, when it was with friends or people, actually there was no stigma.
Hmm.
When we started acknowledging the fact that yes, there is this illness, and yes, okay, my uncle has this, there was no stigma. There was no reciprocation of stigma from that side, and there was no stigma we felt as well. So the
Right.
most important thing is actually to stop the self stigma. And I mean, to tell you, my uncle is he's very symptomatic. So in the
Hmm.
sense that he responds a lot to internal stimuli. So he
Hmm.
talks to himself a lot, he laughs,
Right.
himself. So it's very, very obvious anywhere
Hmm.
we go. But now it's just a part of our lives.
Hmm.
So that stigma part is like gone. And if I feel that when you admit it, it goes down.
Right. Yeah, I guess admission and acceptance, right, are two
Absolutely.
critical
Yeah.
elements.
Yeah.
Um, Vijay, tell us how you got into advocacy. You obviously were struggling. For a while, you didn't know what was going on, then you were diagnosed. But what led you into, first of all, setting up that peer support and then into advocacy?
Uh, I would say it wasn't me getting into it. To be very honest, I was led onto this path by a very, insightful and a visionary mentor friend of mine, Puneet Bhatnagar,
Hmm.
who saw the power of my write, my ability to communicate to a larger audience, and thought that this needed to be given a bigger platform than what he was seeing at the present. So he
Hmm.
coined the name Bipolar India, set up the domain for us, and
Hmm.
so sound very difficult to believe. A person with zero connect from the mental health field uh, actually set the ball rolling. And now
Right.
when I look back at it, I mean, it was bound to happen, because I have come through wilderness. I have seen the agony of going unsupported for so many years, the sheer
Hmm.
vacuum of information flow in those years. When you go back to the 70s and 80s, imagine, right? I've come from that era, and now this landscape escape is completely different. So maybe it was also the right time, very opportune time for us to explore it with social media exploding all around us. It gave a voice to our platform. Uh, as part of this process, one of the key observations over the 12 years that we have been running Bipolar India in its virtual and in-person platforms is this, refrain that is constant about people sharing their struggles of holding on to jobs, even landing jobs. Yeah? And as a person who believes in looking for solutions, not just making noise around it, there was
Right.
just no way that we could just be at the sideline and keep cribbing about this problem, but doing something hands-on to change the scenario. Yeah.
Hmm.
Also, at MHF, our core belief is that recovery just can't be limited to symptomatic relief.
Right.
Social integration is a key part of it. Another observation also was the DEI and how it transpires into action where inclusion is concerned. That's a very limiting narrative.
Hmm.
Persons with mental disorders, especially those with severe mental disorders, are largely out of the purview of inclusion as we see it in the corporate space, to
Right.
be very honest. Yeah. So we felt as an organization also, not just me, but our whole board felt that this is not something that we can be, just be on the bylines and just wait for change to happen. We need to get onto it right away. And that's how Let's Walk Together, the dedicated initiative to work for livelihoods of persons living with mental disorders, was launched in 2021. And we have had the generous support of credible organizations in this space, such as Center for Mental Health Law and Policy, and our funding partner in more recently, Mariwala Health Initiative. And also we have the generous support of people like Tanya Dutt, who is also on the call here. And that's how it began. Right.
Right. Right. And I know you mentioned that you do consider the social integration and inclusion as a key reason for it. But if you were to, kind of let the audience know why employment of persons with mental illness, and especially severe mental illness, is important, and why do you advocate for it?
Let's look at it from the person's perspective, firstly. Yeah. Right. It means the world to a person. Let me share that with
Mm,
you. We sort of undervalue what is the power of making a person feel he or she belongs. Okay.
mm, mm,
Otherwise, the person is an outcast where it comes to inclusion in society is concerned. The need for being, to be accepted in the workplace, to be productively occupied, the sense of self-worth that it lends to the person. I mean, this is something which you cannot just, enumerate in numbers, can you? It's very difficult to do so. Uh, the second thing is there is a lot of evidence that points to the importance of structure, that comes from being productively engaged, whether in formal jobs or other forms of livelihoods, when it leads to outcomes in the recovery process. Yeah. So the outcomes are more favorable when a person is thus occupied. So that's the second aspect to it. Uh, the third aspect, I would say, and the most important one, would also be a rights-based perspective.
right.
Isn't it a fundamental human right? A right to livelihoods is a enshrined right under the Constitution. Yeah. How can such a big chunk of the population be out of the picture? That is a question that needs answering, some serious answering. Right?
Right. Right.
So multiple reasons, and Up close, it sounds much, it is much more emotional to me because I have seen a lot of struggle in the community. And that is why the way we work is all, the passion arises from having seen it up close. Also from my own struggles dealing with my, my career, uh, I could so easily relate to the challenges that the people shared,
Right.
hanging on onto a career and all those struggles.
Right. Yeah. So, Tanya, I know that you are definitely, as both Chromatics probably as well as Atmanirbhar, is a pioneer in employment opportunities for persons with severe mental illness in the country. And I know as Patients Engage, we did a piece with you many, many years back, well before it became a topic of advocacy as well. And one of your service users were also in one of our earlier conversations as well. Um, what are the kind of employment opportunities that you have been able over the last 30, 35 years to be, that you've been able to create? Because there's always this perspective that employers have that, what are the kind of jobs that we can get them to do and so on. So what have been the kind of employment opportunities that you've been able to create?
Actually, we have kind of focused on two areas, which I will explain. So we founded Atmanirbhar in 2012 with the
Mm,
idea that we would focus completely only on employment. So we
mm,
wanted to have a demarcation between what we were doing at ASHA, which is running the residential rehabilitation home, and focusing on employment. We had a lot of learnings from Asha shops because actually the stores, so these are your corner stores, basically like foods and beverage and stationery, so small stores. So we
mm,
actually started our first store in Asha. And the
right,
whole idea was it was going to be a rehabilitation activity for the individuals living in this home. So these
right.
individuals were brought out and they started working in the shop, which worked
Mm,
really well. So Asha then went on to have four stores
mm,
over years. Then we thought, okay, now we will run the home on one hand and focus on employment and try to move away from stores, do many other things in employment.
mm,
Um, but we are still with the stores. So what the first thing Atmanirbhar did is we took over the existing Asha stores. There were three at that time.
mm,
And, what we also did is we partnered with the Banyan, which is a NGO that looks after homeless women with mental illness, and
right.
they outsourced their internal stores to us. So
Mm,
we started managing their stores, and at any point there are 6 service users working in the store.
right, right.
And we also had a store in the Banyan Academy of Leadership in Mental Health, which
Mm,
serviced the needs of the faculty, students, but that closed down because of COVID. So this
mm,
is on one hand the stores, and the other hand at Chromatics. Right from when it started in 1990, we have been providing jobs in the company. So these are different jobs. So they could be in the customer service, front office, in
right,
the packaging section, on the shop floor. So these are the roles that we have been providing over the years. And these are the two things that we have done so far. And I don't know whether, more opportunities will open. And we did, when we started Atmanirbhar, the whole idea was self-reliance
right.
before self-reliance became a popular word. So it was about self-reliance for individuals with mental health issues. And we did think of a lot more advocacy, creating templates for other employers to follow because we've had these demonstrable examples of people working
Exactly.
with us, right?
Right, right.
So currently, that's what we do. In Chromatics, we have 5 individuals. In Atmanirbhar, we have 16 individuals who are working.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah.
Um, I think this is to both of you. Let me start with you, Vijay. What are the challenges you talked of? It's a challenging area. So, what are the challenges that persons with mental illness, and especially severe mental illness, find in terms of the face in terms of finding employment and in sustaining employment?
Now, to talk about our subset specifically, now
Hmm.
we have, we have on hand some 75 CVs And these are from the very qualified segment of society, right? Now, this is the first myth we need to bust, that living with a severe mental illness does not translate into impact on intelligence, ability, and those other domains of a person's, presence or capabilities. All right. So here it becomes even more challenging for these people to land a job than you might say 2 or 3 rungs lower down the order. Yeah. Because most of them are post grads, some are professionals, and so you get the big picture, right? Now, what is the challenge in landing a job? Multiple I would say the challenges arise from. One of it would be poor self-esteem. The nature of the disorder can be such that the person undermines his or her own ability. This has this translates into difficulty in applying for the right job, even if the person is capable, because of this issue of self doubts, the inner demons that a person faces. One thing, cracking interviews could be difficult because of lack of interpersonal skills, again that body language, confidence. That is another aspect. Now, the critical aspect could also be the gaps in CVs. Now, I've completed my post grad in 2018, and what have you been doing after that, right? Yeah, those kind of questions. And how do you explain these away? Now, the other aspect of this is the big chicken and egg conundrum. Majority of people living with mental disorders in India do not disclose their condition at the workplace. So how do I even explain away the gap in the CVs? Yeah, right. Because there is no sort of a logical explanation. So if a person lives with any other kind of disability, there isn't that kind of a stigma as compared to a person living with mental disorders. And this lack of disclosure also then leads to these kind of barriers then. Yeah. So the person gets discouraged, might withdraw from that application, job application, and so on and so forth. Then what happens when it comes to sustaining the job, right? And also prior to that, another barrier could be there might be many job openings. That also happens in our own community. For instance, we have been noticing there might be matching of skill sets, abilities, everything. Okay, but lack of mobility of a person. You can imagine how difficult for a person from Bengaluru to shift to a job in Gurgaon, because it's so important
Their
to have
social
the
structure and support system is there.
that the family provides you. So that lack of mobility can be an issue. During the pandemic, we saw almost everything shifting to work from home, and we are back to either hybrid or completely work from office. So
Right.
that can be a downer for our people. Okay. Now, sustaining a job, as I said, disclosure also leads to challenges even for the workplace. Yeah.
Right.
How are you going to provide reasonable accommodation to the person unless you know what the person is dealing with? Also,
Right.
the person cannot open up about his or her challenges, that look, I need some more room to complete this project, or can somebody help me out when I'm feeling a little low, or my productivity is a bit below par. When you are unable to express all of these because of lack of disclosure, you are seen as a performer who is not putting in his or her best effort, which is not actually the case.
Right.
People can be supreme performers when they are in their normal phases, or good phases, and then dips, and the cyclical nature of the disorder. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Also, the impulsiveness sometimes. Let me also share this. So many of them sort of put in their papers at the first sight of trouble, and that's also because of years of conditioning. Yeah, that I am not good enough. I am not going to be successful at anything that I do in life. Many of these are a mental makeup of the person rather
Right.
than actual barriers. If you would ask me. So we now at Let's Walk Together have a sort of a peer mentoring team to handle such persons. But if you can extrapolate it to the large population, you can imagine how difficult it can be, the whole journey, right?
Right, right. So Tanya, as an employer, do you see the same, issues that Vijay narrated in terms
Yeah,
of, when you
absolutely. In
are,
fact, yes, I was just going to say he's just mentioned exactly the things that I wanted to say. I mean, externally, when people go for employment, this gaps in your resume is a big issue.
correct? That's, yeah.
Why are there gaps in the, how do you explain these things? And
Hmm,
secondly, I think the most important thing is whether to disclose the illness or not, because
hmm,
it's a double-edged sword. The
hmm,
minute someone hears mental illness, treatment, medication, a wall comes up because
hmm,
there is so much stigma behind employing somebody with a mental illness that they are not even given an opportunity. They can't even put that first leg into the door.
hmm,
Thankfully, now, because in today's day, there is so much awareness of mental health, there is, initiatives and things like that. Even organizations are opening up.
right,
Organizations are creating policies where, individuals can, they're creating mental health policies basically for creating room for at least, some individuals to come in and work, because there are demonstrated examples of people who are doing well at work and who have recovered significantly because of work. So that is very, very important that working, as Vijay said before, working is key for rehabilitation of people with mental health issues. As I think it is the structure, as he mentioned.
hmm,
And the other thing that he said about mobility, in fact, when somebody comes to me, I only ask them two questions. One is, do you want to work? And the second one is, will you be able to travel independently to work? These are the only two key factors that are important at that point of time. And because once that is not there, either the wish to work, and even that, there are a lot of individuals who may not have the motivation to come to work, but after a point, they're able to start working,
right, right.
which brings me to the sustaining part, because I think
But
that,
before we go to sustaining, I have
yeah,
one question because we see that sometimes in some of the other illnesses as well, is
yeah.
the company insurance also becomes sometimes a factor in terms of, whether they want to employ if it's not covered in their corporate insurance. So do either of you have a comment on that from a mental health issue?
Vijay, do
Yeah.
you? Mhm.
So group insurance, when it is provided by corporates, generally does not exclude anybody, right?
Okay.
Because if you look at the larger pie, the people coming in from these kind of disorders would be very few. Yeah.
Hmm.
And then they look at it as a corporate client, they can't afford to displease. So it's not.
Hmm.
So if it is an individual proposal, the chances of rejection are still very high despite the Mental Health Care Act.
Right.
It happens very less in the case of group covers, which you refer to, Aparna.
Right, right. So coming back to you, Tanya, on
Yeah,
sustain.
in fact, I think the whole insurance ball game is a huge other story when it comes to mental health. My mother wanted to, get insurance for herself and my uncle, and
Hmm.
he was denied
Hmm.
because of his mental health condition. And she was like, "Fine, I'm also not getting it." So I come from that line of thought where,
Right.
individuals with mental health issues are up there for,
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
yeah, coming back to the
Sustainability.
sustaining, because I think
Sustain.
that has been the biggest learning for us, because that is the biggest challenge that we hear over and over again.
Hmm.
Many individuals will find jobs, then leave, then find them again,
Hmm.
and leave after some time. So why is that happening? And why at Atmanirbhar and Chromatics, we have individuals working with us for years. Like
Hmm.
we have somebody who has worked with us from when Atmanirbhar started like 14 years ago. We have somebody for 15 years, and we have people working in Chromatics for a long period of time. So I think, it's basically the environment that is created.
Right.
We have to see that why is this individual leaving so soon? What kind of environment is he working on? How stressful
Hmm.
it is? Is he being ridiculed? Because that's the most common thing. People leave because they made fun of me. That's
Right.
the most common thing. Are you being asked to meet unreasonable targets?
Mm.
Do you even have like a single friend among your colleagues? Does your boss insult you? Do your family have a lot of expectations from your salary?
Mm.
There's also another big issue that we face, that an individual starts working. After some time, the family says, okay, I want you to earn such and such money. They start putting pressure on that individual. So when an individual is already battling an illness, these issues get amplified and
Right.
extremely difficult to handle. So the environment that they work in is very, very important.
So in terms of, you've obviously, as you said, you have had people working for 15 years, 14 years, etc., at Atmanirbhar or Chromatics. What are some of the, and you said that in terms of your hiring process, right? That you ask them a couple of questions as to whether they want to work, and whether they can travel alone. But what are some of the other kind of allowances and accommodations that you've learned that you need to make this a lasting relationship and lasting employment?
Yeah, I think like as an advocate for individuals with mental health issues and as an employer, many of these things kind of seamlessly flow into each other. So the whole idea, as I said, like I said before, is to create an empathetic environment. Lots of communication with the other staff regarding
Right.
mental health, lots of
Mm,
awareness about symptoms,
mm,
these conversations constantly going through. And yes, there definitely will be issues that will crop up every now and then. But at those times, what we focus on is leading with empathy, and
mm.
leading with empathy to sort these issues out. To like when people are having, like any doubts or anything, to have a lot of conversations around mental health, basically. So that
Right,
is something that we constantly do at Chromatics, because Chromatics has other staff as well.
right, right, right.
And the other thing is, when we notice if an individual is showing symptoms of a relapse,
Mm,
we ask them to take a break
mm,
and get well and come back. So the break could be for a day or it could be for months.
mm, mm.
But they are rest assured that they can come back to us. So these are
Right.
some of the things that we do.
And do you also counsel the family members? Because you
Yes.
said you do.
Absolutely. We
Right.
definitely counsel the family members, like what I said, right? Don't put pressure on him to earn so much money.
Mm,
Don't the fact that he's able to come for work in a structured environment 9 to 5, 7, 6 days a week is a big thing, and he's able to sustain for months and years is a great thing. So what
right,
we also do is we start them off with minimum challenges, and as time passes we up the challenge. So it makes a lot of difference in the individuals. So yes, definitely we counsel the families. Don't pressurize them to get married. Don't there are a lot of issues over here which the individual faces because of course, families also support, families also care, they go out of their way to do these things. But
mm,
yes, we
mm.
need to keep having these conversations.
Right. Because as like you said, you may tell the person individual that they can take a break for as long as they need, but then the
Yes,
family might start to panic
yes,
or think that they
yeah,
should be getting back to work
yeah,
sooner than they are ready, right? So
absolutely, yeah.
that's another issue. Okay. And Vijay, what are some of, have you seen any examples of good accommodations, reasonable accommodations or allowances in kind of the batch or cohort that uh, you ended up finding employment for, or the peer support group that you work with, and what if you have any that examples that you can share?
Sure, that's a great question actually. Yeah, because it gives you a first-hand sort of a view of what actually transpires in the corporate world, and these great examples of fine work culture that organizations can have in place to make life easier for people with mental disorders. So one instance, one of our senior PM members, who is quite an achiever, wanted to put in a paper. She was struggling with anxiety and depression. She works with TCS,
Hmm.
and her seniors would refuse to let her go. They cajoled her to continue in the job, gave her all the accommodation that she needed, and now she is, in a very senior position in the company. Yeah,
Hmm.
open about a condition, welcome there, and at TCS and such a massive company to be part of. So that's what we need for when we talk about a welcoming work culture, where you're not looked down upon because of your mental health condition or the label that people get balked upon by, but your abilities are valued. Yeah, that's
Right.
one. TCS again has something known as a mental well-being leave.
Hmm.
Yeah, they call it as a euphemism, emotional wellness leave or something like that,
Right.
because of the. You can imagine to apply for the leave under that category also might be a challenge for many employees
Right.
who might not want to come out into the open because of it. Yeah,
Right. Right.
even in small, now TCS is a very large organization, but in smaller organizations also we have seen this. A
Hmm.
person who had been in hospital due to an acute episode had completely cut off from his small company,
Right.
and you could call it almost a startup,
Hmm.
and then went to the his boss and said, look, I can't continue in the job, my illness is getting out of hand. And that guy says, no way will we let you go. He says, you continue for a month at least after this, let's see how it goes, and then we take a call on it. And then he continued there.
Right.
So these are, of course, very radical examples of accommodation where the organization bends backward to make the person feel or he or she belongs. But there could be other forms of reasonable accommodation, such as allowing a person to work from home when unwell, and we know a
Right.
lot of examples of these, or flexi work timings,
Hmm.
allowing a person to focus on completion of a project rather than the rigid 9 to 5 deliverables kind of a demand, and many other such accommodations. And the strangest part is that accommodations that are required for mental illness are less daunting than the kind of accessibility measures that companies have in place.
Hmm.
If you just give it a thought,
Hmm.
if you have mobility-led issues, a visual impairment, or there are issues with your hearing or speech, imagine the kind of accommodations that need to be. I'm not grudging these kind of accommodations, but vis-a-vis that, if you say, what are the accommodations that are really needed for people with mental disorders? This is something we need to think about.
Right.
Expanding on your question.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. So I think it kind of leads to my next question, right? Which was like we have one of the most progressive mental health care acts. We have one of the most progressive
Right.
Disability Rights Act as well. Um, how are you kind of working with those, and what are you seeing as a challenge from a policy perspective as well as from an implementation perspective?
Uh, Agree with you. Firstly, that both these acts have been very empowering. They enshrine a rights-based approach to individual-centric kind of an approach. While the Mental Health Care Act focuses on the rights to mental health care for individuals, it sort of sets it off rolling from there. But what is more relevant to this conversation, I guess, would be the RPDA, the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2017. And what it has done is it's created a framework that is mandated for all organizations in India to uh, have in place. Now
Hmm.
that can be from the public sector, and also it applies also to the private sector. Yeah.
Right.
Uh, now, what one of the key mandates of the policies, and which is now then translated into action by organizations, is is the need to draft a EOP or an equal opportunities policy.
Hmm.
So, what are the sort of frameworks that that organization is going to offer to persons with disability, in particular, to ensure that they have equitable opportunities, to be employed with that particular organization, and that needs to be published on the website of that particular that organization, also registered with the charity commissioner. So on paper, it's a very powerful kind of a measure. But
Hmm.
as we see in many of these areas, Tanya just referred to the big struggle with health insurance, which was connected with the Mental Health Care Act. So, changing the scenario altogether. But in principle, in practice, what do we see? That these
Hmm.
gaps are still there in the system,
Right.
right? So
Right.
similarly, the EOP might be drafted, it might be in place. Most of the EOPs are backlinked to the RPDA, so they want to ensure that they are not contravening any of the laws of the land.
Hmm.
Uh, but there are so many ways to bypass all the provisions unless an organization really wants to be inclusive. These are very abstract kind of issues. Uh, it has to come more internally as a need to be more just, more equitable, more humane in approach rather than just be governed by laws. I feel that whole conversation can't be just be law mandated. It's too big an issue to be law mandated. So some of the struggles that we see when it comes from the translation from policy to action.
Yeah.
uh, Now, for the there is a quota for disabilities in the government and public sector. Now, what happens is, for to be eligible, a person needs a disability certificate,
Hmm.
and one needs to meet the benchmark 40% disability to
Get
get
that
into the
certificate.
quota, right?
Right.
Now, as compared to other disabilities, people with mental illness struggle to get into that, sort of 40% kind of framework. And also, the process can be daunting for people living with serious struggles. It's not consistent pan India. Pan India, people living with paranoid schizophrenia have been denied a certificate. Can you imagine, right? So that's one thing. Then there was a circular from the government of India which said that since persons with mental disorders are issued temporary certificates, typically of 5 years duration, they wouldn't be ineligible for PSU jobs. You make a framework where you don't give handout permanent certificates and then you deny them the right. So it's out sort of one step forward and 10 steps back. That is our
Right.
struggle in short. Coming to the private sector, beyond the government sector. So as we discussed that the EOPs are in place, but there is a lot of resistance. And as Tanya said, I would concur. No, I'm not, sort of, it's not painting everything black. Barring a few organizations which are welcoming, which are truly inclusive in nature, by and large, we see that the DEI the landscape is still not really open to people with mental illness per se. Yeah,
Right. Right.
even and we have partnered with several corporate entities also. So I'm glad that at least that movement is happening.
Right, right. And I know there's a comment, and I don't know again whether you've seen that somebody's talked of how persons with mental illness are often paid less than, uh, uh, for the same job profile. And again, I don't know if you've seen that in your experience. It's the chat, Vijay, that uh, if he person was without a mental illness, they would be getting 5 times that salary. I don't know. Maybe that number is not totally correct, but I guess there is some truth to those issues as well. I think Vijay is
If I
frozen.
can, oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
if I can, I did see that comment by that person, and I have had experiences where individuals have come to me and told me that, of course, one is they're paid less. Sometimes they're not even paid.
Hmm.
They're not even paid for the work that they do. So it happens. It's quite prevalent.
Right.
And I think that's one of the first things that needs to be addressed, because that is just not fair.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, And while we wait for Vijay to join back, is there a patient advocacy effort, Tanya, that has inspired you, or one that you want to learn more about?
I
And
think
it could be from anywhere.
yeah, no, I think there are several that have inspired me. I think I'm very inspired by Vijay himself, his journey founding Bipolar India and Let's Walk Together. But having seen my mother as a caregiver and then founding AASHA, I'm very inspired by her devotion to the cause of rehabilitation of individuals. I've seen her strive at great personal cost, and for me, I think from that time, those were the footsteps that I wanted to follow. I was very inspired by the Banyan because I was in school at that time when these two young college girls, Vandana and Vaishnavi, rescued a homeless woman from the roadside. And then they created a revolution of sorts and have
Hmm.
rescued hundreds of women and men. And
Hmm.
the work of the Banyan continues with the same passion till date. So, anybody, I'm very inspired by these people, anybody who looks beyond themselves to provide support. I'm very inspired by the people that I work with,
Hmm.
you know, because all they really want is to live like everybody else. Even though, I mean, they try so much harder, they have medication, they travel long distances, they live in rehab homes, they
Right.
still show up for work, they still want to be a part of the world.
Hmm.
And that itself is very inspiring for me to continue doing what I do.
I'm sure you inspire many others as well. Vijay, yeah, a patient advocacy effort that inspires you.
Uh, Sorry, I had got locked out for a
Yeah,
minute.
yeah, I know.
Wondering what happened. It's just souped out. Any case, yeah. And I share with what share the thoughts that Tanya shared. These are the great organizations that lead us to, to be more determined, expand our sort of aspirations to. And take it to a higher level. But apart from great organizations and of course Atmanirbhar also, so rather than the big names, I prefer the people doing real heartful work, mindful work, without making a noise about it. I think that's the most beautiful part of this kind of work. It's done with, and she had already shared how people have stayed with chromatics for 15 years, and that's something really to be applauded. Okay, so we don't need massive examples. Then there was from the neurodiversity space, Arpan Cafe, if you people have heard of, right, in
Hmm.
Mumbai. These small outlets also, they give us so much hope. But to be very honest, the inspiration comes from within our community.
Yeah.
Aparna, if you ask me, we have so abundant talent. I'm proud of our core team. I mean, it reads like the who's who of India. Asha has got I'm Asha Pillai, Ruchi Bhatia, Tripti Mishra, Prakash Shenoy. They have had a lot of long corporate careers, navigated their severe mental disorders, survived despite all of the challenges that came their way. Pictures of resilience, grace, humility, and now wanting to contribute back to the community. There's no way that we couldn't put in our best foot forward. For our own program lead, Ashish Kejriwal, who Tanya had met when during a visit in Mumbai, lives with paranoid schizophrenia, is impeccable example of what can be possible given the right environment at the workplace and a role of responsibility. So we also need to walk the talk, not just look for the environment to change externally, but what are the small measures are we doing ourselves? To just wrap it up, Aparna, if I may, uh, we need to go also beyond the disabilities domain for sources of inspiration and also build allies with other forms of marginalization.
Hmm.
Yeah, why are we limiting it only to persons with mental disorders or only to disability? If
Right.
the allyship should be much broader than that. We have seen how catalyzing the pride parade movement has been for the LGBTQI segment, right? India needs a national platform like that for disabilities also. I strongly believe that. And this is a cause that would empower more than 100 million Indians in the eligible age of employment. Yeah. So you can imagine how humongous the cause is. So we invite allies to join hands with us. We need to walk together for the cause, to be able to be the change makers that the world needs. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. I think we're kind of coming up to wrapping up. So, Tanya, a word for employers and closing comments.
I think it is definitely possible for individuals with severe mental illnesses to be gainfully employed. All they really need is an opportunity. We can create environments of empathy where they can thrive. These environments are good for everybody involved. Focus on communication, listening. Organizations should avoid creating environments where individuals are so stressed out that they are self harming because of burnout. I mean, we are hearing so many of these things these days.
Right.
Every organization can make, I mean, a difference if it just goes a little bit beyond just revenue.
Mm,
Think about inclusion, giving back to the world that they're taking from.
right.
Give individuals with mental illness an opportunity. Notice that they will bring a whole lot of sincerity, honesty, and value to your organization.
Thank you. Thank you, Tanya. And Vijay, final words to persons living with severe mental illness and their families, and closing comments. You're on. Sorry, you're still on mute.
So, firstly, it all begins with a sense of self-discipline, I would say, to be very truthful. Yeah, we can't always, push the onward, push everything onto the welcoming environment and shirk our own responsibilities. So, the need for self-care, being disciplined, family support, which has been so well shared, expanded upon by Tanya. Whole family needs to be on the same page as far as the recovery part of it is concerned, because stability is crucial to a person sustaining a job. Let's be honest about it. Yeah. Having said that, we also talked about the gaps between jobs for various reasons.
Hmm.
That can be very demotivating for persons.
Right.
My message to such people is not to be demotivated. Use the time to constantly upskill, do volunteering opportunities, take up internship, the kind of openings, stay in the group. That's very
Mhm.
important for your mental framework also, and for you to be uh, constantly sort of growing and evolving as individuals, to keep the confidence going. Yeah. If for the people who are already in jobs, I would say explore what your company's EOP says.
Hmm.
What are the rights that you derive from the EOP? Are you not disclosing for the fear that you have within you? And what actually transpires is the organization might be very welcoming towards people with
Right.
disability. You
Right.
might have to feel your way. There is no one size fits all. Let's also
Right.
share that. Yeah.
Right.
Be too very honest. Yeah. Uh, so also a message from us of hope to such people. We are very young in our journey. It's a massive cause that we have undertaken, but have faith in our vision, our work, and like Tanya, we will begin small, but we want to go deep and make a dent in what in the work that we are doing. And to the corporates, I would say, to HR, to DEI, to policymakers, do join hands with us. This is too big a cost to ignore. Yeah, that's it from me.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vijay and Tanya. And I think as we've navigated today, that clearly right to livelihood is important for everybody, including persons with severe mental illness, and also demonstrated that social integration is critical not just to the well-being of the person but also recovery. And also have great examples of how accommodations and reasonable accommodations can result in good employee employer relationships and lasting impact both for that individual as well as for the organization. So it is doable. It just needs a little bit of openness and a willingness to make things happen. And I think also, as Vijay nicely put it, even to people who are living with a condition that, and actually Tanya started it, that acceptance is important. So start with that, and hard work will be required for everybody. So, don't shy away from that. But also remember, there is a support group out there. There are peer support. So reach out for help. I think there are a lot of groups out there, and we have two people here who also have the support groups, Vijay with the Mental Health Support Foundation, as well as Tanya with Atmanirbhar. So these are great people to reach out to. And thank you once again, Tanya and Vijay, for coming to this show and talking us through this important topic of advocating for employment for persons with mental illness.
Thank you, Aparna, for organizing, and thank you for having these conversations and getting our voices out there.
Thank you. Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you so much, Aparna, and to Tanya also for being such a great panelist to be in conversation with. Thank you so much.
Likewise, Vijay.
It was
Thanks.
a fantastic platform and a conversation that I cherish. Thank you.